For the top, I want to do, because I didn't try this yet, I want to try these two together to see if this extends the time and gives it the thickness, more impasto-like effect. And then I'm going to try this by itself, say maybe in the middle or something, and then we'll do the heavy gloss by itself as well. So just to get an idea of what everything looks like and how the peaks and valleys hold up. And if you don't know what I mean by peaks and valleys, I'm just talking about like the brush strokes. If you were to get really close with it, with a magnifying lens, you can see that there's dips and valleys in the brushstroke itself. Now, personally, I think this looks the best in terms of like holding the paint strokes. This looks like this has more coverage on it too. So this was much more relaxed looking. They have their purposes. I mean, this is what I was looking for. I don't know if there's going to be anything better than this yet, but I do want to try the combination of things just to see how everything looks. Now, I know the Slow-Dri is going to make it look like this, but I'm curious to see like how it behaves on its own. So let us mix the paint. I'm going to use the same brush, which, by the way, curious, it's the Mimic Hog. I don't know if you can see that. It is the Mimic Hog Creative Mark Artist Products. I'm going to do a little bit of white and blue. I'm going to mix 3 piles of this stuff. So I'm going to try to just do it in one blob so it's all the same color paint. Okay. So I don't need much of this Slow-Dri. I mean, this stuff, like, that's pretty much all you need. And then the gloss heavy stuff in the Slow-Dri. So we're going to do Slow-Dri over here. So we're going to do the heavy body too, which I know how it behaves just for the sake of experimentation and just for the sake of showing you how everything behaves separately. So you don't need much of that stuff. It's very, very, very thin. So it acts as an extender, but it also thins. It almost like flows the paint. Not like the flow medium. That stuff is a little bit different, but that does make it really thin in comparison to this. See, this stuff wants to stand up on its own. A little bit more like an oil will. This stuff, see, it kind of wants to flatten out in comparison. You can see the texture of that versus like trying to get a texture of this one. And then this is the other Slo-Dri Medium Gel, which kind of feels more like the Liquitex does on its own, but it seems to behave pretty well. So it kind of does stretch out the paint a little bit too. So I do like that. This might be what I use the most of from now on. Just depends. I mean, the Slow-Dri would be really good for a base. My wife is actually suggesting that. You can put like the thin Slow-Dri base. That way it acts more like oil paint does when you add a mineral spirit to it, like a Gamsol or something. Because it slows with oil, it dries up faster, but it gives you a thin layer, and that kind of does a similar effect, is what she was suggesting. But that's not a bad idea, actually. So this is the heavy stuff. This is this stuff, the thinner stuff. So this is the gloss heavy gel. This is the, I'll just put it up here so you get an idea. This is the one in the middle, and this is the one on the end. Yeah. So I'm going to try to put them in order on the canvas that way. And then I'm just going to flip the canvas upside down when I go to paint it. It doesn't really matter. This is just meant to be an experiment for the paint themselves. I'm not as concerned about did I make it look exactly like an ocean. I was just doing that for the sake of argument. Just have something to look at, or to start with anyway. Okay. So I'm going to try this with the brush, starting with the heavy body. I'll load the paint brush up pretty thickly so you can see how thick that is on there. And we're going to start. I'm just going to try to do a one pass. You can see how far it goes off of one brush. And I usually, when I paint stuff, like, I don't blend it as much. I kind of try to get like those crazy strokes in there. Kind of randomized. It's just how I do it. It's the way I like it to look. It's just me. Okay, so that's one pass, and that's covering pretty well by itself. Now, you don't have a lot of workability. This stuff will dry a lot faster, which can be a good thing depending on what you're going for, what you're working with. And then I'll do another pass. So we'll just do 2. Trying to see if it'll hold some of that brush stroke in there. There's pretty much a 1-to-1 on this. Let's see how much heavy. Let's see if I can get this pretty heavy on here. Because oil, the more you put on the canvas, the harder it is to get off the brush. So that's why you start thin and work your way up to heavier. And similar kind of concept here. The more paint there is in your brush, the more it will actually go on the canvas. But at a point, it gets saturated with thickness and you can't really add anything more. So I'm hoping to get workability time. Now, another thing is with the workability is that's very short, very small. I'm not going to sit here and keep messing with that, right? But if you were to try to paint, let's say, an ocean scene or something, especially if you're painting it more painterly and less abstract, then you're probably going to spend more time tinkering with stuff and you need that open workability time, which is good for the oils, or the oils is good for that. And now for the center, this is just the Slo-Dri Medium by itself. I'm curious to see if we can get quite a bit of paint on here. Now see, this gobs up pretty good. I don't know if it's going to drip. Seems to be holding pretty well. So let's see what we can do. Let's one pass it the same way. That's very, very thin. Just trying to get this covering it. Yeah, it covers really easily. All right, cool. Now, trying to keep from over painting. Now, obviously, it's not going to hold as much texture in the paint, but I'm going to try it again anyway. Trying to see how much paint I can get on here with all of them and see if they'll hold their brush strokes, basically. That's the whole point. Some of these strokes are getting kind of pasty looking, and oil doesn't tend to do that. Like it's kind of catching the paintbrush. Oh, I just realized I boo-booed. No, I didn't boo-boo completely yet. Now the heavy body, we already did the Slow-Dri by itself. I just realized that's supposed to also have heavy body in it. So before I do this last one, I'm going to add a little bit more gel to this last side because I want to see how it's going to handle. So I didn't use a whole lot of that. You don't need a whole lot. Look how pasty that is, you know? So that's almost better than it was by itself. So let's see how that works out. I'm trying to find something that I can replicate and it not cost me, an arm and a leg to do. And it's not so much pain in the butt to do every time, because if that were the case, I might as well just use oil. So I have oils. I just wanted to experiment with this. So I have all these acrylics and I don't, like I said, I don't like to waste supplies. So I was experimenting with these to see originally if I can see. I'm already treating this like an oil. I was experimenting with these to see if I can get that same effect I get out of oil paints. It's a little bit more resisting feeling, but it does have an oil on texture, almost like oil. I won't say it's exactly the same. That's just absurd. All right, so let's impasto it, so to speak, as best as I can. It's kind of what I'm going for, is that I almost wonder if modeling paste would be better, but I don't want to go through that. I might do that. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm just looking for something that's going to hold the brush strokes. So now, it's not covering quite as much. That's fine. This is covering better, but that also means that that's because it's relaxing. You can already see the brush strokes starting to fall apart. And on this one, there's texture there. Looks pretty good. And so this is the mixture of the two, and that might be the way to go. Either the Slow-Dri by itself, which is down here, which doesn't have quite as much texture. The heavy gloss and the Slow-Dri gel rather than the liquid might be the way to do it. Because this was with the Slo-Dri Medium. There's so many of the same name stuff. Okay, this is the liquid stuff down here mixed with the heavy dry. I already know the Slow-Dri gel and the glue and this stuff is going to just make it super thin, so there's no point in doing that. This is the Slow-Dri gel that's down here. This is the gloss heavy gel up here, these two by themselves. And then in the middle, that's the acrylic by itself, no medium at all. Above that is the Slow-Dri gel mixed in. And then these two are, this one here is these two. This one is heavy gel, this big fat one, the heavy stuff with this. So, and I'll make that clearer on screen, but the idea is I want to see which one of these is going to work the best, which combination. And the scientist in me, I had to try it. I can't just leave things well enough alone. That I'm going to let that dry. And as I said, I'm just going to flip that canvas over and pretend it's an ocean. Okay. And then I'll fix it up. I'll do something to it. But yeah, that's the experiment so far. I'm going to let this dry and then we will see what the results are later. This is the end result. I know it's a color block. Like, man, that could have been pretty cool if I'd done it right. The experiment results show, for me anyway, there's quite a bit of texturing here on the top left. That's just the heavy bodies, right? Which I'm used to, and they don't dry as quickly. But what's funny is these are all basically dry. So I don't even know what the workability time is going to be in comparison because I let these dry for a couple hours. So who knows? But I will say this is the mix, and that gloss, I'm trying to see if it's tacky. It has like a stickiness to it, like a tackiness to it because of the gloss medium that's in there. This is just the Slow-Dri, which is kind of interesting because it does have some of that in there. So I think maybe for some reason that additive adds a little bit of thickness to it, even though it also helps the workability. A little bit of texture, but not like that, which is the heavy body, and heavy body mixed with the Slow-Dri gel, and then just the Slow-Dri gel by itself. So for me, this one and this one have similar results, and this is kind of what I was looking for, something that has layered texture and stuff to it. But this requires the heavy body gloss to be mixed in, and I'm getting a similar enough result. Again, if I do, I'm trying to show you the textures. And it gives it a little bit more transparency, which I like because it allows me to build up more layers. This is pretty heavy and goes on real thick. And your cat up there. This is the Slow-Dri, which laid on really nicely, really thick. So if you want it to be able to layer really well, I mean, that's a good option. That's the Slow-Dri thin stuff by itself, because I hadn't tried that. So that's all of them together. Case in point. Now, my preference would probably be the Slow-Dri gel. Just the plain, no gloss, nothing. I think that might be what I go with from now on. I do have that heavy gloss though, so I can use that as well. Now, obviously, the results are nice for what I'm looking for. And once that's gone, I'll just keep using the medium gel. I think that's where I'm headed. The Slow-Dri is nice for the workability. So that gives you the Slow-Dri workability with the gel, giving you some thickness. This might be the best of all the things that I'm looking for. But anyway, hopefully this is useful for somebody. Like maybe something here you prefer. Like maybe you're like, you know what? I think it'd be cool to do Slow-Dri or whatever. This kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. But I have some of that paint left over. I'm just going to use the rest of what I have and try to turn this into something ocean-like. We shall see what happens. That's it. See you in the next one.